Hey everybody, welcome back to another edition of Building Bridges. I'm your host, Greg Johnson, and we are so excited to offer another conversation with my co-host, Marco. We're going to talk about something that's happening not terribly far into the future, and we're going to tell the story behind the story because, again, this podcast is dedicated to having conversations with people who think differently and to know how to do that without being divisive and negative and confrontational, because dialogue and conversation, not confrontation and debate, are a more positive way of kind of moving forward in some situations. And so what we're going to focus on today is how a major event is going to take place at Utah Valley University, the same university, of course, where Charlie Kirk was killed and assassinated on September 10th on campus at Utah Valley University, and how a partnership between LDS friends of mine and the university itself and the nature of the evangelical pastors group in Utah working together are going to bring a night of hope for America, a night of hope and healing for the student body and for faculty and administration and area people that will come to the UCC Youth Event Center for a Harvest Crusade with Pastor Greg Laurie. We're going to talk about that today. Hope you join us for the conversation. I think you'll find it fascinating. Marco, welcome to the show.
Hey, thank you. I think it's impossible not to start this conversation with the tragedy that we experienced a month.
Just over a month ago.
A little bit of a month ago. Yeah. And it's crazy because this is something that we never thought would happen.
Not possible. Not in Utah. Not in Utah County. No way.
It's so crazy.
Yeah. So here's a very well-known young man, 31 years old, and Charlie Kirk is known for what he does. He goes to college campuses. He has these dialogue events where people can go to the microphone. In fact, if you disagree with Charlie, you get to go to the front of the microphone, and you get to confront him and challenge him on his views, his conservative values, his conservative ideas, and his Christian faith as well.
So what did you know before September 10th about Charlie Kirk?
It's so fascinating because I had heard he was on a TV program with Laura Ingraham from Fox News, and I saw that interview, and he said, I'm going to be in Utah in a few days. And I went, oh, that's interesting. He's going to be in Utah. I wonder what campus he's going to be at. And for whatever reason, I thought he'd be at the University of Utah. I had lunch with a friend of mine on that Wednesday, September 10th. And when we came out of the lunch, we hadn't looked at our phones, but both he and I had numerous texts, a lot of texts. And obviously they were all about, did I know, did he know about what happened at Utah Valley University just after the noon hour, where Charlie was answering, I basically think, his first primary question of the day, and he was shot and killed by an assassin who was about 200 yards away on top of a roof at Utah Valley University. Yeah. So what did I know about him before that was that actually a local church here in town called Awaken Church in Salt Lake had Charlie Kirk come as a speaker about 2 years ago in 2023.
Yeah, I remember that.
And I attended that night. And Charlie is a gifted, capable, impressive communicator, a stalwart of the faith. He's a very firmly committed believer in Christ. He is not, I'm a bit more of an ambassador in my approach. We've talked about that on our last podcast about the whole, relationship thing. Charlie is a guy that can deliver the goods pretty effectively. And he can be confrontational without being rude, but it doesn't come off as he's clearly very, very powerful in his presentation. So I heard him that night at the church, and I appreciated much of what he said. There are a couple points where I said, I think he's a little too abrasive here. He really took after pastors for not being bold enough and strong enough and charging forward with the culture on values that we should stand for and that we're too afraid to be called political and whatnot. And there were some times that I thought he was a little harsh, but overall I respected his presentation and only knew him through that. I really there's lots of conservative commentators. I knew that he did this college campus thing where he took questions, and I didn't even know that Turning Point, actually my daughter was involved in Turning Point at Corbin University in Salem, Oregon for 1 year. And so there was a night when he spoke there, and I guess she got to see him. So I didn't know much about him, just that he was a capable, articulate, impressive young man, and he had started an organization, and he wanted to really challenge young people, particularly high school, college-age people, that there's a better way to look at the world, in which many through high school and particularly in college are indoctrinated in a liberal worldview, and he wanted to challenge that on the ground level. So that's what he was doing, and he was in town. He was in Utah to begin his fall campaign of doing college dialogues and debates and whatnot, and that's all I knew.
It's so interesting because in my case, for example, for me, it was the fact of I started watching Charlie Kirk many, many years ago when he was starting with Candace Owens, doing things with the Black Lives Matter.
That whole topic.
Yeah, it was interesting to see that whole thing and how they were debating and having conversations, and it was interesting. I remember when he came here at that church, I was unable to assist, but you need to remember too that we were right in the middle of the period having Democrat government, and it was a tough time. I feel like
when he came
here
during the presidential primary, it was 2023. So
well, what I'm saying is, like, we were suffering, in my opinion, in my humble opinion, we were suffering all the struggles of
some of the limitations of religious freedom and some of the advance of value systems that were very different than ours. So, he came and he really riled up the crowd, because like you said, 2024 was an election year, and he came in, I don't know exactly what time of the year in 2023, but I know it was 2023. Yeah. And it was very compelling.
And I will say, for example, in my case, until his death, I didn't know how much influence and impact this man had.
Well, we learned
not only here in the United States.
No, yeah, exactly. He had events in Oxford, England, and all kinds of things but it's pretty clear, and both he and President Trump acknowledged that without his efforts to turn out the youth vote, the younger vote for Republicans and for President Trump in particular, that was a heavy reason, not the deciding factor, but very important reason.
Yeah.
And to some degree, people did give Charlie Kirk credit that had he not done the work he had done with younger people, that Donald Trump might not have won that election.
Yeah, it was crazy. So we had this situation. He's coming to Utah September the 10th. The news, it was, for me, it was devastating. I remember being at my house working for church stuff and getting the text of Charlie Kirk is being shot. That was the first thing that I heard.
Right.
And I'm like, no way.
And was that
immediately I go to social media, YouTube, starts looking for information. It was crazy.
Well, like I said, I was oblivious till about 3:00 in the afternoon. The shooting took place about 12:20.
Yeah.
And there's no doubt now, we know that was a kill shot, that most likely Charlie Kirk didn't feel another thing. He was shot and hit major arteries, and the blood came out, and he was probably dead in that very moment. But they certainly did try to take him to a hospital and see what they could do, but chances are is that he never felt and understood what happened. It just, one moment he was talking, and the next moment he was in heaven, kind of thing.
Yeah.
But so
let me ask you something. Yeah. I've been wanting to ask somebody like you this question. To whom will you compare Charlie Kirk in terms of influence politically, spiritually, to you knowing history? Who will you, especially being the way that he was?
Well, let's just think of a contemporary.
Okay.
and certainly we understand this man has tremendous influence. Martin Luther King Jr.
I was thinking about that,
Yeah.
but I wanted to see.
So there's a lot to debate about Martin Luther King Jr. in terms of people's perspective of him as a man of religion and faith and his work in civil rights and all that. But clearly he's acknowledged as a major force for civil rights movement in the 1960s.
Yeah.
He was a man of peace,
Yeah.
and he had an approach to dealing with the abuses against the black community. And so he becomes a voice of a generation to raise up concerns
Very influential.
for this ill treatment of the black community. And yes, he becomes very influential. And he's challenged by people like Malcolm X and others who don't like his methodology and don't like his approach to things. But nonetheless, today the world recognizes Martin Luther King Jr. with a national holiday. Many streets are named after him. And we acknowledge him as one of the most important voices in that civil rights movement in the 1960s and following. He's killed sadly and tragically in 1968. And I think we make the allusion to Martin Luther King Jr. because as Martin Luther was assassinated, Martin Luther King Jr., so too now we can say that Charlie Kirk was truly assassinated. And the question, some people don't like it. I'm completely comfortable calling him a martyr for his faith because it was his faith that guided his worldview and his political thinking. And so when he's speaking about the LGBT community or the transgender community and giving voice to that, we now know
It was always a perspective from his faith.
well, but we now know that his assassin was involved in a gay relationship with a gentleman that was seeking to be identified as a female, and so obviously has a vested interest in quieting the voice of Charlie Kirk, who has become so influential that he feels, I don't know what his bottom line motivation was, but to stop this voice in light of what he was doing and his feelings for this person and this relationship that he had. We don't know the answers to all those questions yet, but nonetheless, Charlie stood up for his faith. He articulated it well. He stood in the fire of many, many assaults, and sadly and tragically, his demise comes because of that, because somebody is so unable to engage in public and allow people to have different points of view and free speech in America, that he feels the only way he can solve his problems is to assassinate a man who's married, has 2 beautiful children, and the crisis and the catastrophe of that is horrific. So Charlie, is he going to be as big as Martin Luther King Jr.? I'm not trying to say he will or won't.
In my mind, that's what I was asking, because I compare it up to that level.
Well, I think, again, I'm thinking with the assassination, there's clearly a connection. Now, Martin Luther King Jr. was dealing with the issue of race, and yet Charlie was speaking to his own contemporaries in the high school culture, in the college campus subculture, and the young adult singles and the young adult people. In addition to many others who are listening into his podcast. I mean, he had one of the top 10 podcasts in the world, wasn't it? In the top 10, I believe.
I believe so.
Yeah,
like us.
Yeah, not like us. Not like us.
Pretty soon.
Rogan. What's his first name?
Joe Rogan.
Joe Rogan is number 1, right? Is that still the case? And then Charlie was in the top 10. So he's running an organization with thousands of employees. I don't know exactly how many employees, but running an organization, having a presence on college campuses, and literally affecting the presidential vote of 2024, and being a close confidant of President Trump. I mean, President Trump refers to him as somebody who calls him and asks him to come immediately to this event or that event, and he says, "Hey, Charlie, I'm the President of the United States. You can't just ask me to come tomorrow to this event." So he had that kind of entree with the president and with members of his cabinet, clearly, as they all spoke at his memorial service at Cardinal Stadium.
But here's the thing: it's undeniable that, as the scripture said in Romans 8, all things
work together
for our good
to those who love God and are called according to His purpose.
Yeah. So, in this has sparkled something incredible. People are calling it revival. And I want to hear your opinion about that.
Well, it is interesting. Certainly, at the memorial service, we heard from Marco Rubio, the Secretary of State, from Bobby Kennedy Jr., who's the Secretary of Health and Human Services. We heard from Vice President J.D. Vance. We heard from the Secretary of War, used to be the Secretary of Defense, Secretary Pete Hegseth. We heard from a pastor that Charlie Kirk deferred to as his pastor. We had great Christian worship music. There was clearly, and then of course we heard from America Kirk, who actually forgave the shooter that took her husband's life in real time in front of that whole auditorium, that whole stadium, and around the world.
I mean, that phrase, I forgive him.
That man, that young man. Yeah.
For history.
Yeah. It's epic. It's totally epic. So one of the things that I find fascinating, two things in relationship to your question. Number one, before Charlie arrived at Utah Valley University, he had been invited to speak to restaurant owners in kind of a consulting firm deal. I'm sure he was paid for it or whatever. And he was there being interviewed by a local restaurateur in front of others. And they were asking him questions about branding and about this and that. And the last question he asked him was, what is a quote that you live by, or a phrase or something that you really enjoy? And he literally went immediately to Romans 8:28, quoted it, not knowing that within the hour his life would be over.
Wow.
So he's rushed out of there, rushes over to the UVU, comes out, throws all those hats out, and then gets behind the microphone and begins to entertain and talk, and by 12:20ish he's been killed. So he gave us the answer of how we are to handle his assassination. He reminded us that God works together for good, even something as horrific as a public assassination. And it's the starting block of Charlie's influence beyond death. I believe as a Christian, it says to be absent from the body is to be present with the Lord. I believe that Charlie went to heaven immediately upon dying, and that as his body was rushed to the hospital and declared dead, and beautifully taken by the vice president on Air Force Two back to Arizona for all the memorial and all that there is a new legacy, an expanded legacy, an influence beyond anything that he had just in his human life. Now, as a martyr, he, there's that great Tertullian quote of the first century or the early church, where the blood of the church is the church. How's the quote go? The blood of the martyrs is the advance of the church. So upon the blood of martyrs, the church grows. Kind of a concept. And I think Charlie Kirk's influence has grown exponentially since his death, with many, many chapters wanting to be opened on college campuses. I thought one of the most powerful things that was said in the memorial service was by Robert Kennedy Jr., who talked about his own granddaughter going off to college in Europe. And at one point he says that his daughter, her mother, came into the room and said, "Why are you taking a Bible with you to college?" And she said, "Well, Charlie Kirk believed in it, and I want to learn more about that." And so Bobby Kennedy was saying, he influenced my own granddaughter, who is not a person of faith, to check it out. And obviously his faith was foremost in what he did. He even said publicly, "What do you want to be remembered for? I want to be remembered for the courage of my faith." That was passionate for him. And so it was so interesting when his death was announced, and I was shocked and kind of taken back and just like blown away by this pure evil act. This is whoever did this. Of course, we didn't know for a few days, but whoever did this is evil. Whoever did it is maniacal, and this awful feelings. And I remember even saying to myself as I was driving home from downtown Salt Lake City to where I live, and kind of thinking about some of the commentary that I was hearing, like, Lord, what can we do here in Utah? What can I do? I don't know Charlie Kirk. I wasn't there today. I immediately got contacted in my role with standing together as a network facilitator. I was contacted by Peggy Fletcher Stack of the Salt Lake Tribune. Over the next days, I was contacted by the Deseret News to make a statement. What are evangelical people feeling about this, and what is their regard for Charlie Kirk? And so I participated in a couple media opportunities, but then I said to myself, outside of this, I think this is it. I didn't know Charlie. I don't know how to extend his ministry or extend his reputation or whatever. So let's get
but before
we got a story to tell today.
We go there. I think that we need to remember people. That is what my question was going to, is the fact that something happened in the Christian world and in the churches that this kind of like movement, people going to church, like.
Well, that's what we're hearing, and I know a church that is very close to Utah Valley University, literally probably within 5 minutes of the campus by car. It's called Centerpoint Church. I know the church well. I know the pastor well. He has indicated to me that after the death on the 14th of September, 4 days after Charlie was dead and shot and killed, that their attendance increased by 500 people. They run about 1,000 people. That first Sunday, 1,500 people.
Wow.
They extended a fourth service. They had 3 already, and they had to buy chairs. And I don't know how it's gone, but I know for multiple weeks they were running, the 14th of September, the 21st of September, the 28th of September. They're seeing a 500 person increase, 50%.
And what I'm saying this is because, in a way, Christians too have become more bold in speaking out. You know what I mean? Their faith.
Yeah. I mean, is this just a moment? Is this going to last longer than that? I mean, what we don't want, and I'm not an advocate of people responding to evil with evil. We don't want to be, how dare you killed Charlie. Now we're going to, in your face and yell and scream and behave badly. I don't think that's what's happening. Much like, and I had the privilege, Marco, to be a first responder chaplain at Ground Zero in 9/11 when the towers came down in 2001.
Yeah.
And I was there on site. I was at Ground Zero. I was talking with workers and engineers and firemen and police officers. That was my job as a chaplain, is to minister to them during this awful time. And what happened in America? The Congress came together. We sang "God Bless America" on the front steps of the Capitol. People started going to church. We had a national program at the National Cathedral. Billy Graham spoke. A lot of prominent Christian leaders. And for weeks, there was a surge of church attendance because people felt, wow, the very core of our society has been attacked. Our buildings, our people, almost 3,000 people were killed, the economic center of New York, of all that stuff. I think similarly, there's a sense that Christianity is being attacked, and we've lost a good man in this battle because he's been shot and killed. And so people have risen up to stand more boldly in their faith. And other people are saying to themselves, like that a granddaughter of Bobby Kennedy, why did being a Christian and being a conservative cost Charlie Kirk his life? What was so dangerous about him that somebody on the left felt the need to take him out? And I think that curiosity, and even before Charlie Kirk, let's be honest, we know through organizations like the Barna Research Company that they were indicating that there has been a movement this whole year. Even before his death.
I remember you sending an email recently about young
men deepening their faith and walk with God, being curious about spiritual things, being curious about the Bible. Do you know in the last year or two, the Bible has outsold itself like of all time, and more people are buying the Bible. I mean, the Bible has been around, for almost 2,000 years, whenever the final Bible was compiled in its current form. But it's always been and is the number one best-selling book of all time because so many people have bought it for so long. But in recent years, the Bible has really surged in its sales because people are curious about God. They're curious about Christianity. They're curious about, should I believe in Jesus? Should I not believe in Jesus? And they know the Bible is kind of the key book. So people are buying the Bible. College campuses are seeing revivals. I know there was a massive, what they call spontaneous baptisms that are happening. The Ohio State football team, some of the football players had a rally one night, and they shared their faith in Jesus Christ, and numerous students came down for a period of a long time to get baptized on the spot. I think this has happened at other campuses. But what Barna is telling us is that young men are responding to the Christian message in a way that's really quite historic and more numerously than young women, because women have always been
The primary.
as a gender more attentive to faith, more
Yeah.
attentive to believing in God. Men have been less, but for the first time ever, and it's only a slight discrepancy, but for the first time, the research is showing that young men are actually more curious than young women, and it's really fascinating. We haven't seen this in decades.
Yeah.
So I think Charlie Kirk comes on the heels of that
Yeah.
and just explodes that notion that there is a God,
At the right
that
moment.
we need to believe in him,
Yeah.
that why would a guy have to die just to be a Christian? And it sparks all kinds of internal questions and convictions and wanting to learn more. So I think that God has definitely using this tragic death and assassination, this martyrdom, to bring people to a conviction, to bring people to a place of curiosity. And I think Erica's comments about forgiveness have just blown people away.
Yeah. So we're going to take this situation with Charlie Kirk for a minute and put it in aside. We're going to come back to it. But there was something happening I will say 2 years ago, where you as the person that has this ministry called Stand Together, we're in contact with pastors here locally to do something, to look for the opportunity of something. Why you don't tell us?
Yeah, I'm wearing my T-shirt today, the Harvest Crusade. This one was on July 1st and 2nd in 2023. So, yeah, Utah had reached out. There's a pastor.
Do you remember what was the year?
Well, we reached out officially in 2022.
Yeah, I remember.
Yeah,
going to the
later
meeting.
2022. A friend of ours, we both know him, Daniel Ollinger at Salt Lake Calvary Chapel, had gone up to Boise, Idaho in early 2022 and attended and served at a crusade that Greg Laurie spoke at up at Boise State. And he came back and talked with me about my role as a network leader among churches, and could we reach out to Greg Laurie and see if he would come to Salt Lake City? And I said no, because we've gone down this road before, and it seems to divide the pastors. Some people don't like crusade evangelism, these big meetings where people are invited to come forward and receive Christ. Some people think it's insincere. People think it's old-fashioned. Some people don't like the amount of money those kinds of things cost to rent a big stadium and the sound system and all that stuff. So they say don't do that. Don't waste the money. Just put it into individual pastors who are planting churches or something. So that I basically told them, we've done this before. We actually wanted to bring Franklin Graham here, the son of Billy Graham, but that didn't work out, and other things didn't work out. So I'm not willing to kind of ride this horse and champion this cause. And he was a little disappointed, but so one day, my mom was actually living in Boise, and I had gone up to visit her. And when I came into town, I saw on the side of the road, and this is what changed my mind, I saw a big billboard. It said, "Thank you, Boise, Idaho. X amount of people attended, X amount of people came forward to receive Christ, and X amount of people that whatever the numbers were."
That was after that event that
up in Idaho. Yeah, and I see a billboard that impresses me with enthusiastic numbers and responses to whatever Greg Laurie did there in his crusade. And I understood what a crusade was, a preaching of the gospel with some Christian worship music and all that stuff. And so I came back and I saw Daniel at a pastor's meeting, and I said, Daniel, I saw this billboard. That was pretty impressive. I wonder if we should knock on this door. And he's like, yeah, let's knock for sure. And I said, let me tell you what I need to do first. I need to go talk to some key pastors, some gatekeepers,
here in
Salt Lake City, in the valley. And I need to get their feedback. And if they're like, no way, Jose, then we're not going to do it. And if they're like, yes, let's consider that, we'll take the next step. So I went and talked to Bill Young from the Rock Church, a longtime friend and ally and key partner in ministry at the Rock Church down in Draper. I went and talked to Rich Wooten at Life Church, a key friend in the ministry. Yeah. And so we sat down, I talked to them, and both of them had an open mind that said, maybe it was worth considering, at least at the first entry level, until we decide, yay or nay. So I said, okay, and I might have talked to one or two others, but
maybe you talked to me too.
I might have talked to Marco and got Marco's opinion. Marco, what do you think? And he said, I wouldn't do it if I was you.
Let's do it.
No, you say, too expensive. No, I don't know. So at one of our regular pastors meetings in October, I believe it was October of 2022, I made an announcement. Well, we didn't make an announcement, but after that meeting, I had asked 10 pastors to come to lunch. And we did. We went to lunch. Bill was there and Rich was there and a few others, just, Daniel, myself. So that would have meant, maybe 6 others that we invited. And we basically pitched this idea. And I said, if the 10 of you, if we agree together to do this, I think we can go to the next level. But if, most of you don't agree, or even a few of you don't think we should have a Harvest Crusade in Utah, then we'll let it go. And the consensus of the whole group was we should take the next step. Now, I want to tell our audience, because again, I always tell these fun stories. Literally, we're sitting there. Now, you and I both know that our ministry brought Ravi Zacharias, a well-known evangelical speaker and commentator, to the LDS Tabernacle on Temple Square in 2004, later again in 2014, and Nick Vujicic in 2009, the man with no arms and no legs, great friend. Both of them great friends, and we had some historic opportunities to do that. So throughout the course of this lunch with these 10 pastors, there is a couple at the end of our table on the other side, of the,
not being part of the conversation.
They were not a pastor and they were not listening. I mean, they were not a part of the conversation, but you could tell they were listening to everything we were saying, almost kind of like listening in and then talking and listening and looking over at us. And I thought, this is really strange. It was a young couple,
Did you notice that?
It was so obvious I couldn't miss it, And I thought to myself, I got to ask these people, like, are they evangelical Christians? Do they know Greg Laurie? Are they LDS? What's going on here? Because they were just so blatantly listening in. And we talked for an hour and a half. So we all walk out of the restaurant with this idea that we're going to move forward. And Daniel comes out, same guy I was just talking about a minute ago. And Daniel says, hey, there was this couple in the restaurant, and I spoke with them a little bit. I said, no way. Is that the couple that seemed like they were listening into our conversation? He said, yes. And I said, and what did you say to him? He said, well, I just mentioned that they seemed interested or curious, and they said they were. And it was just a quick, greeting and whatnot. And I said, I got to go back and talk to him. So I go back in the restaurant. They're still sitting there. And I said, excuse me, I was at this table. I'm one of the pastors, and we're thinking about bringing a guy named Greg Laurie from Riverside, California, who's a well-known Christian speaker, into Utah to have a meeting. And you seem so curious and so interested that you were listening to every word. Was I correct? Or what's your perspective? And this guy says, well, I'm a recently returned LDS missionary. 6 months ago, I returned from my missionary, and I've already gotten married to my high school sweetheart, and we're just having lunch, and I want you to know, whatever you guys were talking about, I sure hope you do it. And I said, why would you say that as an LDS person, formerly returned missionary? He said, because when I was a kid, I went to the tabernacle, and there was this guy, and he didn't have any arms and he didn't have any legs, and he was speaking at the tabernacle, and I was invited, and he was like I think an evangelical Christian, and he was talking about Jesus, and it was so amazing. I've never forgotten that. I said, time out. You, as a boy, were in that meeting with Nick Vujicic. He said, yes. Do you know anything about it? I said, dude, that event happened because of me. I mean, I invited Nick. Yeah. I brought it all about, and I was there. You don't have to be
ashamed of that. It's true.
I was the MC. You saw me too. And he's like, no way. And so he was flabbergasted that memory of being a Latter-day Saint youth inside the tabernacle, being invited somehow to that event where an evangelical speaker, and he just said, it was so awesome. If you have a chance to do something like that again, you should do it, because I will be there. I have no way of getting in touch with this guy, but God does. There will be a lot of publicity about what we're going to talk about next. Or maybe that guy's going to listen to this podcast. Who knows? And somehow we'll get reconnected. I can't wait. I think that's a story that's yet to be finished. But I just said, well, I hope if we do this that you will definitely see billboards on the side of the freeway, and that you'll do what you can to attend. And that was that. So to me, I told the other pastors when I went out, I said, that to me is like a wink from God. When an LDS kid who's just got back from his mission, just got married, he's like, you should do this. I'm like, well, okay, we should do it then.
Yeah, it's a confirmation. So from that point, I remember being in this meeting where the representative from the Harvest Crusade was part of it.
Well, actually, there was a few more steps in between.
But that is what I was going to ask you, like how this, after that launch or that time at the restaurant, came to that point on that meeting.
Yeah, we started to we kept the conversation going. Daniel had the contact to the Harvest Crusade people. So it would be like, we would talk here locally, and Daniel would represent our group and go talk to the guy named Mark. And And so going into 2023, we were starting to feel pretty optimistic. And again, after one of our pastors' meetings that Stand Together hosts, we were down at South Mountain Community Church, and we decided that we would arrange a YouTube with some of the leadership of the pastors from Boise that participated in their event a year earlier. And we just wanted to know, was it easy to work with Greg Laurie, with his team? Was it something that you felt was a net positive? Was it draining?
What do you mean about YouTube?
What did I say, YouTube? I meant like we had a Zoom.
Oh, a Zoom. Oh,
okay, I'm sorry. Yeah. We had a Zoom with those pastors.
Like a YouTube? Okay.
Sorry, thank you. Correction. A Zoom, and they told us it was great. It was great to work with Greg Laurie. It was great to work with the Crusade team and all the people they worked with, and it went well, and it was well organized, and a lot of people attended, a lot of people responded, and we're like, wow, that's a great report. Is there any reason why you would think that we shouldn't do this here in Salt Lake City? Okay. No, if you guys get the chance, you should definitely do it. So now we have that kind of behind us, and we feel like we've taken another step. Now we feel it's time to contact the Greg Laurie people. And so in March of 2023, Daniel sets up a meeting with a guy named Mark, who is their head guy on the Crusade side, who's their representative.
Another Zoom meeting with him?
No, this was in person.
Okay.
And he comes to Utah, and we meet at the Little America Cafe, the diner at the Little America. And we go there, and there's just me, Daniel, a guy named Ira Popper from Adventure Church, and Ken Kruger from the Mountain Church, the four of us with Mark. So there's only 5 of us in this meeting. Mark's a little disappointed that there's not more pastors if we're really that interested. And frankly, what I would say back to that is Mark had only given us like 2 weeks notice that he was coming. So it was not easy to get a group of people quickly together. Yeah. So we did what we could. And he said, hey, if you guys are really this interested, we should have another meeting in June. So that was March, May, June. So
2 months.
April, May, June, 3 months. And we should have a meeting, but we're going to need to see more pastors, that are able to attend. And so I said, okay, if you give us some time, I think we can get them. And I have a friend named Trinity Jordan, and he's a lawyer, and he worked at a law office that was on the 18th floor of one of the downtown law firms. And so he opened up this is the meeting that you were at. He opened up his boardroom on the 18th floor, looking out over the city of Salt Lake, glass wall, from ceiling incredible. to floor. And we sat at this massive boardroom. There's probably 35-ish pastors that were in attendance. Mark was there. He's very pleased with this turnout, and he gives the whole story of what it means, what it will cost, how it works, who what happens, and da-da-da. And there was real consensus after that this is what we need to do. Yeah, we had an awesome prayer time. We turned our seats towards the glass window and prayed over the city of Salt Lake and said, if God, this is something you want, help us to move forward. And it was just a real time of dedication. So Mark actually invited all that could, but we were invited to immediately, this is June of 2023, to come down to the Honda Center, which is in Anaheim, California, where the Ducks play ice hockey. And the Honda Center is where they were going to have their next crusade in July. So a month later, myself and a handful of pastors go down to Anaheim, California, and we go to the crusade, and they host us, and a few of us got to go connect with them.
How was that experience?
It was wonderful. I mean, it was obviously Greg and the Harvest team have often done crusades at Anaheim Stadium, where the Angels play baseball, which is a much bigger venue than the Honda Center, but it still was very impressive, and it was full to capacity, and they had kind of the main stage was on the floor of the stadium in the center, so they kind of had a round thing so that everybody's every seat in the house was well used and allowed to be good seating for that. And so we actually presented Mark, his assistant, the director of the Crusades, a document, a folder with 31 churches extending a formal invitation to Greg Laurie and the Harvest Crusade to come to Utah. And there were 20 individual letters with 11 names added to those letters. So we said 31 churches are inviting you. He says, well, okay, this is awesome. We feel like this is a sign from the Lord. I will share it with Greg, but remember, the crusade is over here in Anaheim. He's going to take a little time off, and we'll get back to you sometime probably in later August. Okay. So that, it's early July, so we're going to have to wait a month or two to see what their response is.
I remember that.
And at the time, and I don't know what the situation is now, but I also know that there were other cities that were asking Greg Laurie and the Harvest Crusade to come to their city to do a crusade.
Yeah.
And one of them was Nashville, Tennessee. And so they were there that same night. We got to meet them and talk with them. And so we went to this presentation, and Greg Laurie talked. And
when you went to
Anaheim, to the Honda Center. And so we gave him the thing. We left and went home, and we just kind of waited. And there was some real tragedy that happened in that summer in August. Remember when the city in Maui, the island of Hawaii, I'm forgetting the name of the city.
No, but I remember.
There was a massive fire, destroyed most of the city on Maui. And the Harvest Church has a presence and a campus over there. So apparently they invested some time, money, energy to help the people and to serve the people. So we were kind of told that, hey, wait until Greg has returned, and now he's not going to return, and this harvest thing has to be put on the back burner because we've got this Hawaiian situation in Maui. So we don't hear anything until the end of the year. And literally on January 1st of 2024.
When you're saying until the end of the year, like 2023 December, something like that?
Yeah, we didn't hear anything else from Mark until January 1st, 2024.
Oh, wow.
Because I remember the text where he said, Happy New Year's, guys. How's everything going? And we were like, oh, wow, we finally heard from the guy. We had sent some text our way, but he didn't respond. And we finally figured out, the Hawaiian fires, this, that, and the other thing. So now it's time to get back on track with the possibility of coming to Utah. And about March of 2024, Mark actually came back to Utah, again, with not a whole lot of time. And a small group of pastors met over at Life Church, about 15. And he told them that the official decision of Greg Laurie and the Harvest Crusade was they have selected Utah. They're coming to Salt Lake City, and it's going to happen. And we're going to do it.
Did they give you a date by then?
They were proposing for fall of 2025. That would have been a year and a half. They needed that much time. So we're like, okay, we're in, you're in, let's go.
Wow. Okay.
And over the course of 2024, there was a number of unmet expectations, particularly on the communication level of where are we at? Have you found a venue? Have you made a decision on a date? And
that was from you guys to them, or from them to you?
No, from us to them, because that's their decision,
okay.
And that's what they do. They put the organizational thing. So throughout the course of 2024, I'm going to be honest with our audience, I became disillusioned. I said to myself, well, until they get a date and until they find a venue, this thing is pie in the sky. It ain't going to happen. We had all this momentum. We had 36 plus churches at the meeting.
Excited.
A number of churches had made financial pledges, not paying, but a number to the tune of about $200,000, which I thought was a great start for us. But as months passed by, more and more churches were like, well, what's going to happen with the harvest thing? And we kind of lost major momentum.
Yeah.
Momentum is clearly what happened. So as the end of the year comes in 2024, I'm pretty much out of the picture, and 2025 starts. And at that point, I will roll the clock back just a little bit further to October of 24. Mark came to town again. We had another conversation, and I joined.
What was that meeting about, the last one in 2024?
Well, he came to kind of reignite the fire again, to kind of say, hey, we haven't forgotten about you guys. We're here, da 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 da. And I was like, show me, give me a date, give me a venue, then I'll believe it. And I actually had dinner with Mark with some people, and we had a good cordial experience, but I just kind of kept feeling like, until there's a date, until there's a venue, this ain't happening. And so we got into early 2025, the very year that we're in now. And obviously 25 had moved back to 26 because you can't do a crusade in the same year. So we're now talking about 2026. We're not talking about 2025 anymore. And so in March, we have a meeting, and they actually say, well, let's start thinking about 2026 and da-da-da-da and da-da-da. And we have a Zoom meeting. And I actually joined that meeting. And our response...
Wait. You're saying on 2025, the beginning, they are moving in now to 2026.
Yeah, they moved I mean, there's no way that they could do it in 2025 anymore. Now they had to move it to 2026. And so there was a kind of a sense that, okay, we're going to see something now, finally. And so in a conversation in March of this year, we're talking with the leadership, with Mark and his leaders, and we say to them, can you give us a sure venue and a sure date by April 15th? Yes, we can do that. And we said, now, we'll be honest with you, we've heard that before, and we're kind of frustrated. We're kind of not sure that we can keep getting disappointed like this. No, don't worry about it. And I might even have a couple Christian artists who will be a part of the event as musical leadership, Well, that'd be great, So April 15th comes and goes. May 15th comes and goes.
So April 15th, and they didn't get
no
back
phone
to
call,
you?
no back to
Wow.
us. So May, June, July, August, in late August, and we started to talk amongst ourselves and said, it's time for us, after this frustration, this lack of communication, this stop and start. We went to the original 31 churches and polled them. We had a Zoom, and we actually emailed them and said, as an executive team, we're recommending that we withdraw our invitation to Harvest and move forward in other planning. So there was a Zoom call that was agreed upon.
This is kind of like by the end of August, correct?
Well, actually, that phone call and that Zoom call actually took place on the 2nd of November, 2nd of September, so that, and I know I got a little excited there, so that by the 9th of September, we sent a letter to Mark and to Harvest Crusade saying, then we are going to withdraw.
Just in case, we need to realize this. September the 9th, you email Mark, the person that is in charge.
A withdrawal letter. We are now formally withdrawing.
This is the guy that is in charge of
Harvest.
putting together the whole Harvest thing.
He's the director.
Greg Laurie.
He's a great guy. He's a wonderful brother in Christ. But we had just gotten so frustrated that we thought, we can't do this anymore. We have to move on. We've been focused on this for so long, and it's just not coming together. It's time for us to just initiate this change of plan. So literally, what happens on the 10th of September? Charlie Kirk is shot and killed in Utah, at Utah Valley University in Utah County. Unbelievable. And I remember, I told you early in this podcast, what can any of us do? We're not able to get on the platform or whatever and talk about anything. And I did have some media interviews. But consequently, on the very next Sunday, the 14th of September, our good old friend Mark calls us again. And he says, hey, guys, man, what happened in Utah? How you doing? It's heavy-hearted, da-da-da-da. And I was talking to Greg Laurie, and he's really concerned about what's going on. And we're kind of thinking that maybe we should expedite the crusade to a much sooner date and do whatever we can to deal with this terrible assassination.
So what tells you this? That this tells you something right away.
What does it tell us?
That he hasn't get the email.
He didn't read the email. No, we asked him that about halfway through the conversation. Hey, Mark, did you read our email that came on Tuesday? No, what email? And he goes, let me go read it. He says he was busy and all this busy schedule and all this. So he comes back and we're texting at this time. And he said, hey, I understand you guys have made a decision. I'm disappointed. I'm sad, whatever. And there are other cities that we can go to, but with what happened in Utah, we really want to partner with you, and we really want to work with you. And there's some opportunities here that I think Greg feels strongly that the gospel needs to be preached. And what would you think about that? And we said, well, like when? You saying like in the next month or two? October, November? That's amazing.
Wow.
And so I remember I got on the phone with Bill Young. And we're kind of talking to each other before we actually got on the phone with Mark and Daniel and Ira. And basically we were saying, we have been frustrated with this process. We love Mark, but we've been frustrated with him. And we've made a decision to pull out and to move forward in a different direction. But something else has happened. And we can just let our frustration make us stubborn and not respond to this invitation. And if they're really serious, maybe we should put away our negative attitude towards this process and consider it. And I think we both got chills up our arms, Bill Young and I on the phone. We said, what if God would allow us to bring the gospel through Greg Laurie's ministry in 2025 like we originally planned to Utah Valley University, the very place where Charlie Kirk was shot and killed.
Yeah.
And so we're like, we agree. We should be open to this. We should not be negative. We should not be like, no, thank you. So we get on the phone with Mark, with Daniel, with Ira, and myself and Bill, and the five of us talk it through, and we say, if this is a sincere invitation, we're in. We're in for whatever it looks like. Where are we going to go? Huntsman Arena at the University of Utah, Weber State, the Maverick Center, BYU Marriott Center, UVU. Oh, that's a small center. How much does it seat? Only 8,000 people. Wow, it'd be really incredible to have the event right at the same university. Who's
saying that?
This is being bantered around in the conversation, And so I took the initiative after that call because we had the yes and the green light, but we didn't have a venue, and we didn't have a particular date, although as soon as possible. So
here's the part, people, ladies and gentlemen, because you took the liberty to do something.
Well, and I am absolutely publicly thankful for what I'm about to share, that two dear friends, both of them prominent Latter-day Saint leaders in our community who I knew had influence at Utah Valley University that I've known for years. I've known Elder Matt Holland of the 70 for a number of years. I've known his father, Elder Jeffrey Holland, for almost 28 years, and we've been friends. I knew him when he was President Holland of the Utah Valley University, and we'd interacted from time to time. So I reached out to him by text, Elder Matt Holland, hey, we would like to do something very special at Utah Valley University, and we would like to host Pastor Greg Laurie of the Harvest Crusade for a special meeting to bring hope and healing to the campus. Is there anybody you can direct us to? He writes from Kazakhstan. He's in another part of the world. And he gets my text and he says, somebody will be calling you tomorrow. I said, wow. Oh, thank you, Matt, so much. I contacted our former governor, Gary Herbert, who has his political center at Utah Valley University. We've remained friends. Yeah. We were in contact just prior to this for another reason. And I reached out to him, and he said, well, the guy that is the director of my center is the right person for you to talk to. And guess who that was? Justin Jones. And who was the guy that Elder Matt Holland was going to refer me to? Justin Jones.
Now, who is...
Justin Jones is the director of Gary Herbert's political center at Utah Valley University, and he was prior to that the chief of staff for Elder Matt Holland when he was President Matt Holland of the university. So he's well connected. He is very, very respected at Utah Valley University. So what happens is I finally get on the phone with him on the 17th of September. Now realize Charlie is shot and killed on the 10th. We have this conversation on the 14th. We had planned on the 9th to be done with Harvest and move forward in a different direction. And Sunday the 14th, we talk about it. I sent out a text that night, and both of them refer me to Justin Jones. And by Wednesday the 17th, I'm on the phone with Justin Jones. And I share with him what we're planning, what we're thinking about, and is it possible? And he literally says to me, and I just am so touched by this, he said, well, the two men that I respect as much as anybody on this planet are Matt Holland and Gary Herbert. I love them both, and they think very highly of you, Greg. And so they both have recommended that if I can do anything to help you, that I should, and I'm going to do everything I can to help you.
So
unbelievable.
I know.
That doesn't work in the normal real world.
No, and this is the part where people need to understand that God has opened incredible opportunities and connections in the state of Utah through Standing Together and through Greg Johnson.
Well, that's not the important part of it, you know.
It for moments like this, that is what I'm trying to say here.
Yeah.
But there's a phrase that when you told me the story too before, in terms of who was the person you were saying like, Utah Valley UVU is going to be known.
Well, that's Justin Jones. I know exactly what you're saying because it was on that phone call. I said, Justin, let me tell you what our heart is, so you totally understand what we're going for. So go ahead. I said, Justin, sadly, Utah Valley University has a stain over it. The stain is, this is the place where Charlie Kirk was killed. You might as well put it on the front page of your website. Come to Utah Valley University, the place where Charlie Kirk was killed. That is your calling card. That is what you are known for.
Yeah.
And that's so unfortunate and so unfair, because you have a great university. A lot of people, 42,000 people go to Utah Valley University. That's an amazing number. It's the largest public university in our state, larger than BYU, larger than the University of Utah. Wow. It's very, very popular, and it's doing great things. So I said, I want to say that this is so unfortunate because it's a great university and you have a great school. Now, forgive me for being too spiritual when I say this, but I know someone who's really good at removing stains. His name is Jesus. And by his blood, we're told in Scripture that he removes the stains of our lives through his cleansing power. Wow. And I said, I'm telling you that I don't want Utah Valley University to be known as the place where Charlie Kirk was shot and killed. I want it to be a place where people say, that's when the Harvest Crusade came, and the healing that took place and the hope that spread from this place all across America. Wouldn't it be incredible if instead of being known for being the stain of assassination, it was known as the spark of revival? Oh, man. And he literally said to me, Pastor, that is beautiful. I am so excited about what you're doing. I want to be a part of it. I'm honored to be a part of it. And he has been nothing but helpful. He's hosted us in meetings.
But wait. So you have this conversation, count with us whenever we can do. Now, when you go back to Mark, what happened then?
Well, I notified him that we have a very good possibility of being at Utah Valley University, and we need to get a meeting with Mark involved. So Justin got Jared, who's the facilities director at Utah Valley University, and the four of us made a meeting, and then we actually met on campus about 2 weeks ago. So it would have been the last Monday night in October, and so we were there on campus. We met with Justin Jones. Justin Jones. Gary Herbert, the former governor, came over from where he lives in Orem to attend that meeting. They surveyed the facilities at the UCC Youth Event Center, and everything looked really great. Everything is fabulous. There's been no concern about, the school supporting a faith-based program. There's been no concern about cost and expressions of what it's going to take to do this. They have been nothing but supportive because they believe
what they are willing to to offer.
Right now we have the use of the venue, the staging, the lighting, the sound, the digital boards that they have, the Jumbotron in the stadium. We have access to promoting this event on campus through their digital signs, even the sign that is out by I-15 freeway. We have an opportunity to connect with students and be publicly there. Again, they see this, as I understand it, they see this as a time where the love of God and the forgiveness of God and the mercy of God. Now, one of the things that we shared, and this is not for massive public consumption, because there's no guarantee, and I'm not announcing anything official, but from the beginning, because we know that Pastor Greg Laurie knows Erica Kirk, that there has always been and there has been notification. She does know this event is happening at Utah Valley University on November 16th. She does know that she's been extended an invitation to attend and possibly to speak. We have not gotten the final word on that, but that invitation is known to her, and we are hoping and praying, if God wants her to be a part of that night. What a powerful contribution. We also know that
maybe by the moment that this podcast comes out, we will put in the bottom,
she has confirmed.
She has confirmed.
Well, we also know that through Greg Laurie, we've already secured the musical talents of Chris Tomlin and Phil Wickham, who both played at Charlie's memorial service in Arizona. They're some of the top-notch Christian worship leaders in our country. They are coming. To my knowledge, at this point, just so you know, having been involved with all the previous preparation, we knew that there was a dollar amount of money that the local church and the Christian community here in Utah was going to need to raise. We do not have a solid figure. To my knowledge, we're just doing this thing, and I don't know who's paying for everything and how it's going to be covered, but that doesn't seem to be a concern of anybody's at the university, at Harvest. We know that we probably need to get to that, but in fairness, it almost seems like everything's being provided, and we'll think about that later. So right now, it is remarkable to have the access. Now, think about this. And Greg Laurie is particularly passionate about ministering to students who saw the event in real time, the assassination, people who didn't, but have been living with that as a student in that school since it. Faculty, administration, anybody associated with the school. And then, of course, BYU is around the corner. It's 5 minutes from UVU. So here you have a student population of 34,000 some odd at UVU, at BYU, and then 42,000 some odd at UVU. So we're talking about 70,000 plus students in Utah County attending BYU in Utah Valley. We're sitting in a venue that only seats 8,000, and we have 2,000 overflow seats. So if students respond to this event, to this opportunity, like we hope and we think they will, it may be very hard for anybody else to see this program, but we have a solution to that. Already, nearly 50 churches have signed up to become venue sites at their buildings all across Utah. Some even up in Montana are interested, where they would open up their church to simulcast it live, so that there will be a facilitator in the church. People would invite their friends and neighbors to come and hear this, because there's a limited number of seats and there's a massive amount of students, and we want to prioritize those students. And so we are hoping, and then of course it is already being planned to be simulcast on YouTube, so anybody in the world will be able to watch this crusade. So we think it will have worldwide influence. And the fact that God, I think that's one of the biggest things about this, here you have LDS support, you have university support, and there's a lot of LDS influence at Utah Valley University, but it is a public university, and they have to abide by those guidelines that they have. I don't even know what they are. I know the president of Utah Valley University is fully aware of this event and is supporting it. Justin Jones has been superb. Wow. So if you have a campus and you have LDS friends like Governor Herbert and Elder Matt Holland helping the cause, and then you have the support of Greg Laurie and Chris Tomlin and Phil Wickham, and maybe Erica Kirk shows up. We also have, and I know this will be very fun for a lot of people here in Utah, but the opportunity possibly of having Jonathan Romy from The Chosen. Oh my! We're trying to include him as well. Again, I don't know if there's any confirmation of that at this point, but it has been definitely talked about. And Greg Laurie knows him personally because they did the movie together, Jesus Revolution. They both starred in that movie, or Greg was very involved. His character his life was featured in that film. So that's just really amazing. It could be an absolutely epic night. And it could be a night that contributes to what we're already seeing in our culture today, that younger people are asking deeper questions about faith. They've seen that the world doesn't have the answers. We're so divided as a nation over race. We're so divided in our nation over class and economics. We're so divided over gender. We're so divided over sexuality. We're so divided over the sanctity of human life. We're so divided by so many political issues and political parties, red and blue, and Republicans and Democrats. I think there's a number of people that are saying to themselves, there's got to be more. And maybe we have turned our face from God, and maybe now we need to turn our face towards God. Yeah. And we don't know what's going to happen.
I feel like that it connects a little bit with what we were saying in the beginning, the fact that God works and orchestrates greatly things like we never thought.
Oh, my goodness.
2022, pastors here were thinking about this idea, but God has a different...
Yeah, we had far surpassed 2025 into 2026, maybe pushing it to 2027, when Greg Laurie introduced this on the 28th of September. Yeah. So we literally have this conversation on the 14th, and he stands before his congregation in multiple services and says, we're going to Utah, we're going to Utah Valley University with Harvest, and we're going to go there on November 16th, and we have literally 7 weeks from today. 2 weeks have passed since that time, so that means we literally have 5 weeks from where we're at. Yesterday was Sunday, today's Monday that we're filming, and we have 5 more weeks to get the word out, to get more host sites, to make sure students know about this, to get them invited, to get them to attend, to have this marvelous experience at the UCCU Event Center. and to see if it will be the spark that we pray and hope that it will be, for many young people to feel good about having a relationship with God.
So let's say two things. First of all, if somebody's listening and they're here in Utah, what can they expect about this event and how they can be part of it? And if I'm a local church and I'm listening this, I'm a pastor and I'm like, hey, this is exciting. What can they do in order to be part of this?
Well, we have already been passing the word out to churches far and wide to be host sites. And if at this point there are still churches that don't know about this opportunity, they certainly can reach out to me and they would know how to do that. And we could get them the information because it's a direct link to Harvest. Harvest then communicates to them what they need, what the live feed has to look like, and all this other stuff. And the instructions will be provided. Local people that want to attend, here's the big rub. Obviously, 8,000 seats in the stadium, 2,000 overflow seats. The plan, and this is not in firm, hard cement, but is to maybe on campus create, we're going to be doing some decisions actually tomorrow about this, to create a line that is students only, and to then create a line that is other. And so what we would do is, we don't know exactly who's going to attend or how many people are going to show up, but if there are like 15,000 students, then about 7,000 of them aren't getting in. We can put 2,000 in overflow, and then we can direct them to other locations.
Wow.
But we know that people have to be in their seat in the stadium by around 5 o'clock. So we'll give them an hour to come and be in that line. If a smaller number of students show up and the overflow is filled, we will allow overflow people to go into the stadium so that that we can fill it. I am not worried about that. I do not think that we're going to struggle to find people that want to be inside that building. But I actually do know that from our local heart, as well as I think Greg Laurie's ministry, they don't look at this night as an opportunity for born-again evangelical Christians to show up at a stadium to be entertained.
It's more evangelistic.
No, they want people who need to know
Jesus.
the love of God. They want particularly to touch the lives of students who are angry, who are fearful, who are afraid, who are, whatever their disposition is. So we want as many of them to be able to go inside and see this program. And so others will be directed to outside sources. And we hope that we can accommodate just as many people as want to hear and see this program, either on a satellite system or in the venue itself.
So, okay, there's this thing that Greg Laurie was promoting last time. I don't know if you remember, the 3 o'clock, I believe.
Yeah, that's kind of a fun thing.
How was that situation? And the other thing is, what can we be doing from now to the event?
If you're a believer and you look at this event as something that can really help people, we're asking for you just to ask God to bless it, to pray for it. And there's a verse in the Bible in Ephesians chapter 3, verse 20 rather, that says that God is able to do exceedingly abundantly beyond all that we ask or even imagine.
Amen.
So what Greg Laurie's leadership has been is to say, hey, every day at 3:20, remind yourself to say a little prayer for the effect of this outreach. I believe within literally a week or two, people are going to see billboards all up and down I-15 from St. George all the way up to Logan. I do believe there will be plenty of media coverage and interest in this story. So I don't think that we're going to struggle, frankly, from what I understand, that people won't know this is happening.
Yeah.
And then when they see that it's at Utah Valley University and the connection to the assassination of Charlie Kirk, there's an emotional component there. And when we are able to announce one way or the other, if Erica Kirk can be with us, that will even be more powerful to whatever extent it takes place.
It could be a healing moment too,
I like that word. I like healing as well as hope. A night of hope and a night of healing for America. This we haven't seen something like this with Charlie Kirk, and we saw it so viscerally. I mean, students were filming it as it happened in the very moment. We saw the blood gush out of his throat. We saw the death. We saw that moment. We haven't seen that really ever. I mean, when Martin Luther King was assassinated, when Bobby Kennedy was assassinated, when Jack Kennedy was assassinated, we do see in a very granular film that was being produced by Zapruder, the famed Zapruder film, we see that something, sprays off of Kennedy's head, and we know that that's part of his skull, and we get all that now. But at the moment, it kind of blurred images. We did not have blurred images of Charlie Kirk's death.
Oh, no.
It was crystal clear, and people saw it, and they were deeply affected by it in very painful ways, emotionally, and I think there's a lot of trauma there. So I really do believe that what Greg Laurie wants to accomplish is to bring a sense of purpose and a sense of healing and a sense of hope that out of great tragedy, good things can come.
Yeah. So to wrap it up and finish this podcast, we know that God is doing something. So what will be your last word for our people?
Well, I think we need to end where we began with Charlie's quote of Romans 8:28 in the Bible. Paul says that all things work together for good to those who love him and are called according to his purpose. I think God, there is evil in this world. Bad things happen all the time, and evil is the absence of goodness. Where there is goodness and the absence of goodness. I think that the reality of evil in this world, where goodness does not exist, where death and murder and rape and pillaging and all kinds of bad things happen, lying, deceit, all these kinds of things, where a violation of the rules and the way in which God would have us live our lives for the good of the community, where that happens, God can take those bad things and turn them around to bring good. So you have to ask a hard question. How could this situation ever be good for Erica Kirk? How could it ever be good for her little son and her little daughter? How could it? How could it ever be good? Well, I can offer a personal testimony to this. And you know this story, but I'm married to a widow. I'm married to a woman whose husband was killed in a car crash when she was 6 months pregnant with their first child. I would raise that child, our daughter, Indiana. She would never know her biological father. She would certainly have his DNA, his skin color, his hair of red as he had. She looks like Noel. She has his genetics, and if you will. But I was the father that she called dad, and I raised her. Now, we have thought about this many times as a family and as a couple. That was obviously my wife, Jill's, worst day in the world, to lose her husband, her young husband of less than 5 years. The husband who is now going to be the father of her child, that they're expecting in a few months. When he dies, so much dies for her. There's so much sorrow, there's so much pain, there's so much sense of loss. Well, a group of us as guys and friends of Noel, my wife's first husband, we gathered around Jill, we prayed for her, we supported her, we encouraged her, and lo and behold, through a number of very divine appointments, talking about divine appointments, Jill and I found each other, and we decided to get married, and I was honored to become Indiana's dad, and then we raised 3 other children with Indiana, so we have a family of 4 kids, and now those 4 kids 3 of the 4 are married, 3 of the 4 have had children or expecting children, and we see that there is good that came out of this terrible tragedy of Noel dying in a car crash. He was not assassinated. That evil did not exist. It was a pure accident. It was a pure tragic accident. And yet he died, and Jill grieved, and Jill lost. And I don't even struggle, because I know that every single day of my life, there are not these 3 human beings that exist on the planet if Noel didn't die. Now, obviously, had Jill and Noel lived longer together, they more or less would have had more children. They'd be different children. I get it. But this is how God has worked through the tragedy of Noel's death. Is I have a wife, Jill has a husband, we have a whole family. I know that Jill would never, not that you could, but she wouldn't change what she has for what she doesn't have, because she loves all 4 of her children. Her child with Noel, raised by us. Her 3 children with me, raised by us. It's a family that we believe is a gift from God, and we honor it. So I don't know how Erica Kirk's going to look back on this time of her life in 20 years. Nobody needs to speculate about whether she'll marry or not get married or have any more children, or what her life will look like beyond this immediate tragic season of her life. But those things are possible. And how will God use this in her life, in the life of her children? What motivations, what results? Because we know also from the Old Testament, and I think all of our listeners need to hear this, Joseph, we know about Joseph, one of the 12 sons of Israel, the sons of Jacob. And one of those sons, the second to the youngest, is thrown into a pit and eventually sold into slavery because their brothers really didn't like Joseph, and they thought he was arrogant, and they thought he was dad's favorite, and so they didn't like him. So they got rid of him, and they even told their dad, our brother was killed by a terrible animal accident. A wolf came and got him, or a lion, or whatever, And so for years and years, that was the story to be known. Meanwhile, God was working in Joseph's life so that he went into slavery. He got picked by Potiphar to be his house slave. He got in a tragic situation where he was falsely accused by Potiphar's, I just said his name.
Potiphar.
Yeah, right? That's Potiphar's wife falsely accuses him of trying to rape her. He gets thrown into a dungeon. He has situations there. And eventually he gets out of prison and becomes the second hand to Pharaoh over all Egypt. And through his intelligence, he's able to save all of Egypt from a terrible famine that is about to come. Yeah. And when his brothers show up in Egypt, unbeknownst to them, thinking their brother was long gone and dead, and Joseph realizes, these are my brothers. These are the guys that tried to kill me. They this is my moment. I can crush him. I can kill him. No, he stands before them after a few interactions, and he says, what you meant for evil, God meant for good. Now, we don't always get to see those results, though we don't get to see the details as blatantly as we do when we read in Scripture of Joseph's encounter with his brother, or Paul's writings in Romans. But we can take heart from those teachings, from those words, and say, maybe God can do it again, and maybe I could trust God to heal my broken heart. I've heard it said that the broken heart is the price we pay for the depth of the love we have for someone that we lose. And it makes sense to me that if you love deeply and you lose the love that you deeply love, the person, then you'll hurt deeply, and that's the price you pay. Yeah. So Erica Kirk and her children and his family, his mother and his father, his sister, and all the people around him at his ministry and his organization are devastated. Many of us are devastated by this tragic event. But I think that Harvest Crusade, America, and we're calling it Hope for America, that wouldn't be happening. It wouldn't be galvanizing Latter-day Saints and evangelicals to come together to listen to a message about God's love. It wouldn't bring Christian artists and possibly Eric and possibly Jonathan Romy or whoever to come and be a part of this night. Yeah. This would not be happening. So this is a product of a terrible assassination. And this may be just one tiny example of something good that God is going to do. And what about all the lives that might get changed through this crusade? All the decisions that are made to follow God and to accept God's love. And if they do, maybe hundreds, maybe thousands of lives are changed because of the loss of the one life of Charlie Kirk. And I can tell you this, Charlie being a Christian and being in heaven,
will be proud.
He would be happy and proud to know that his death led to other people coming to faith in Jesus Christ.
I think as a word I was thinking when you were saying your story and connecting with the situation that happened, there's hope. Even
there's hope
in the tragic like this, there's still hope, and God can do amazing things. So awesome.
Amen. Well, hey, thanks for checking in, and we want you to know that Hope for America with Pastor Greg Laurie is coming to Utah Sunday, November 16th. The doors will open at 4 p.m. The event will start at 6 p.m. The likelihood is that the tickets inside the stadium will go very quickly, and primarily to students. There will be room for volunteers, and that's all happening through Harvest. And details are continuing to forthcome. You can check out harvestcrusade.com for more information if you want to hear directly from them. You can listen to your local. If you're an evangelical, you can get information from your pastor. If you're a student, we hope that you'll get information from the Harvest community as well at Utah Valley University, and possibly students from BYU, wherever you're at. We hope and are very, very excited about this event because we want to bring healing, we want to bring hope, we want to bring love, we want to bring the joy of Jesus Christ. And when Erica Kirk said publicly at the memorial service for her husband that she forgives the young man who took his life, that is the essence of Christianity, because when Jesus died on a cross, the very first thing he said is, Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. He was able to offer forgiveness to God, his Father, from those who were involved in crucifying him and executing him. And I have to believe that Charlie, particularly now in heavenly glory, would have the same attitude. Father, forgive this young man who took my life, and use this event, my death, to bring many, many, many people to the hope and healing and love of Jesus. I think that's going to happen. I think lives are going to be changed. I think it could impact people all over this country and possibly even around the world, because that's what God is capable of doing. So check out our next podcast when we bring back another topic or conversation of building bridges with Greg Johnson and Marco, our new co-host. So God bless. Check it out. Do all the things you're supposed to do. Like, send, comment on the video. We'd love to hear from you. God bless. Take care. We'll see you next time on the Building Bridges podcast.